Hello, I'm John White. With me today is Valois Pierce. Valois is a master gardener here in Doñana County, and Valois has brought some plant specimens.
Well, I want to start out, John, with this weed. You and I know it's a weed, but I actually had a little neighbor from Chicago watering these because it had such a pretty flower. And I thought, well, maybe there's some other people out there who think this is a flower.
Well, I guess it's a weed when it's in a place where you don't want it, and other times it can be a wildflower. This is Silverleaf Nightshade, and Silverleaf Nightshade is a perennial, and so it does spread by rhizomes. Also, these little berries that are on it will turn yellow later in the year, and they'll produce a seed, so it can reproduce by the seed or by the rhizomes. And usually if you try and chop it, it just puts up more plants, so it even gets thicker. Usually it grows areas of kind of poor soil. Does have a lot of thorns on the stem on it, so it's pretty easy to identify from all those thorns, and it's pretty rough on you when you try and pull it by bare hand. But this is probably a plant that is not real desirable in a yard situation, so you would want to try and control it. I would probably recommend the use of a commercial herbicide as far as trying to get rid of it, since it is perennial. Some of the organic gardeners might have some luck by continuing to chop the little seedlings that pop up all the time, little shoots, so keep those chopped off. If you don't allow them to get very much growth back on them, then they might be able to control it that way. But otherwise, I'd probably look at some kind of chemical control on it.
Back east, is this considered a flower?
No, but it does have pretty flowers on it. So, but the Solanaceae family, which this is a member of, there's a large number of plants in that family, and you can see these flowers are quite colorful, and so somebody from back east might think this is a wildflower.
All right, thanks. John, I have a Loriope that was pulled up by a dog, and we put it back into the ground, and it came back pretty nicely, but this part right here is still dead. Do you think it's going to green up again, or have I lost that part?
Okay, the Loriope is pretty easy to transplant. You know, some of the roots may have dried out, so some of the dead area here can be cut off where you have some of the green. You can take a trowel and split the root ball on it. That's how you would divide it. And so you can get some of the brown area off of this. This probably area is just dried out. But since you do still have the green area in it, then there shouldn't be any problem with it, you know, dying out. You should get good survival rate on it. So I'd just go ahead and transplant it back into the ground and maybe try and keep the dog from pulling it back out. But you should have good success with that.
As long as I'm going to be transplanting it, can I divide this up into little bitty plants and spread it around the yard?
Sure. You can take your trowel and just split it, cut it into some segments, and go ahead and plant those separate segments, and it'll take hold.
Well, it might have been good timing. Thanks. Now, I know you've told me that Chitalpas don't do that well here because of our heat, and this one, as you can tell, was losing all its leaves, but it started to green up, and we did get some flowers. And I'm just wondering if this situation is like the Mexican elders, that it's going to go dormant, or is it really just a sick tree and I should chop it down?
Okay. Now in Chitalpa, these are being used a lot in xeriscape landscapes, and the Chitalpa is a cross between a catalpa and the desert willow, and the desert willow actually is a catalpa. So it's been crossed, and it has some beneficial aspects of it. It doesn't produce seed, so you don't have the seed pods like desert willow does. And of course, it's not as large a tree as a true catalpa, and it has a little bit broader leaf than our desert willow, but it does require more water than desert willow. So it is a plant that requires more water. It needs to be well watered. So some of the dieback could possibly be from maybe not receiving adequate water.
It's not receiving any water.
Okay, the foliage looks good on it, but it does need to have more foliage, and with the dieback in the different areas, it needs probably more water to be situated in a site that receives more water. But again, it can be a good plant for the area, it just requires a little more water.
Okay, I'll do that then. Now, John, I remember from class that ants are good and that they're good for the environment, but I have too much of a good thing in my yard. And I am planning to put this all over the place to try to kill these ants. You think that's a good idea?
Okay, on the Amdro is a ant bait that's used particularly for fire ants. And so knowing your specific species of ant is important because Amdro does not work on all ants. It does work good on the fire ants, and with some of the recent rains that we've had, has brought out a lot of ants. They're starting to move mounds, and some of them will develop into some winged adults that will move on and move the colony to another spot. But we are starting to see more native fire ant, and hopefully not imported red fire ant, but we do have a native fire ant, and Amdro works real good on that. And so first thing would probably to get your ant species identified, so getting a sample of your ants either taken to a entomologist somewhere, at the university. If you're in the southern part, you can put it in an airtight container, spill-proof container, and send the ants in to Dr. Carol Sutherland, and Carol can get those identified. So if you're up in the northern end of the state, there's entomologists up in the northern end of the state also that can identify some of the insect species. So again, knowing what to use and using the proper insecticide is important, because you can spread this around. If you have the wrong species, then it doesn't do any good, and you're wasting product.
Well, and I'm noticing that there's a lot of a little black one that bite hard, and the little bites become infected.
Okay, that could be a fire ant. It could be one of our native fire ants. So again, the Amdro would probably work on that. With Amdro, this product, the granules are taken down into the nest, and it destroys the nest that way. So it works a lot better than some of the more contact type insecticides. So again, Amdro would be something you could use with fire ants.
All right.
Lois, thank you very much for bringing the samples today, and we'll be right back.